All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we recap everything that happened in week 9, including the Niners win over the New York Giants. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. All right, let's get into week 9. It wrapped up. It wraps up on Monday, but it wrapped up on Sunday with a Seattle 38-14 win over the Washington Commanders as Jaden Daniels had a significant left arm injury in the fourth quarter and left, and I don't know what his status is going forward. Sam Darnold was perfect for much of the night. He finished 21 of 24 for 330 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had the one pick. Seattle was up 31-7 at halftime. They are a much better team than the team that the 49ers beat in week 1. Jackson Smith-Njigba, 8 catches for 129 yards. Seattle had 4 sacks. They had 7 hits on Daniels. They were everywhere, and Tyrese Knight led them defensively with 10 tackles. Devin Witherspoon had 7 tackles. They got a lot of performances. They did lose linebacker Ernest Jones IV to a right knee injury. So that's going to set Seattle back, but Seattle goes to Washington or goes to Maryland and knocks off the Commanders. Seattle now 6-2, 4-0 on the road. The Commanders are having a real bad year. They're 3-6, and will they trade Deebo Samuel and others? There's some talk of that. The Commanders now with this injury to Jaden Daniels, their whole season kind of thrown into a tailspin. Now let's look at what else happened around the NFL on week 9 outside of the Niner win. So Seattle crushes Washington in a game they led 31-7 at halftime, and they win 38-14. Now, elsewhere in week 9, Chicago beats Cincinnati. Now, the Bengals fall to 3-6. Does that mean they're going to trade Trey Hendrickson? I don't know, but they look like they're probably not in any kind of a playoff race. Caleb Williams hit Colston Loveland with a 58-yard score with 17 seconds left. That was the game winner. What a shootout. 47-42, 3 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes. They kept going back and forth on this thing. Loveland wound up with 6 catches for 118 yards. That's the rookie tight end out of Michigan. Joe Flacco with a career-high 470 passing yards in the defeat. And Chicago beats the Bengals by 5 in Cincinnati. The NFC's wide open because a lot of the contenders lost in week 9. Minnesota beat Detroit in Detroit behind J.J. McCarthy. He threw for 2 touchdowns. He ran for a 3rd touchdown. Minnesota's defense held down Jahmyr Gibbs. Nobody can hold Gibbs in check, but today the Vikings did. They held him to 9 carries for 25 yards. He also had 3 receptions for a total of 3 yards. Detroit offensive line is not that great. They lost Frank Ragnow. Christian Mahogany was carted off in this game. They gave up 5 sacks to Jared Goff. They don't have a good backup quarterback. Detroit also had 10 penalties in this game. So Detroit, who a lot of people think is the best team in the conference, gets beat at home by the Minnesota Vikings. While that was going on, the Carolina Panthers got their 5th win of the year, and they beat the Packers at Lambeau 16-13. Now that Panthers-Niners game later this year is looking to be a little bit more of a battle. Green Bay's now 5-2-1. They've had their 3-game winning streak snapped. Rico Dowdell has been terrific for Carolina. He had 2 rushing touchdowns and 130 yards on the ground. Not only did Green Bay lose the game, but they lost their all-world tight end, Tucker Kraft. He was carted off in the 3rd quarter with a knee injury. It looks like it may be a season ender for Kraft. We'll find out more on Monday, but that's a huge blow for the Packers. Green Bay did drive inside Carolina's 35-yard line on 5 of their first 6 offensive possessions in this game, but had to settle for 2 field goals. And Jordan Love loses at home to the Carolina Panthers on his 27th birthday. Not a good way to celebrate. Chargers beat Tennessee 27-20. Tennessee's now 1-8. They've lost 4 in a row. McCoy, their interim coach, I believe, has lost 3 of the 4. Chargers had Joe Alt carted off for the 2nd time this year with a high ankle sprain, and this one looks like it's going to be, it's going to keep him out a while. Chargers, though, are playing well. They've won 3 out of 4. They had 4 sacks, 2 by Odafe Owe, the former Raven. Chargers had 343 total yards, and Tennessee had 206 total yards, and the Chargers win 27-20, and Titans fall to 1-3 on the season now. Elsewhere around the league, New England beat Atlanta in Foxborough 24-23, and they get the win to go to 7-2. New England's hot, man. They've won 6 in a row. Drake May, 2 touchdown passes on a day that he was sacked 6 times by Atlanta's defense. And Atlanta would have had a tie game in an overtime situation, but Parker Romo missed a PAT late in the game, and that was the difference. Atlanta hasn't won in Foxborough since 1998. Wow, Bijan Robinson was really the story here. The New England Patriots held Bijan down. The Pats do one thing well, better than anybody else right now, and that's stop the run. They held Bijan Robinson to 12 carries for 46 yards. And Atlanta's like 0-5 when Bijan doesn't go for at least 75. New England is the only NFL team to not allow even a 50-yard rusher at any point this season thus far. So they are really good against the run. How about Pittsburgh beating the Indianapolis Colts at Heinz Field, or whatever they're calling it these days? 27-20. Pittsburgh beats the Colts. Indy is 7-2. Pittsburgh's now 5-3. Pittsburgh's defense forced 6 turnovers. Suddenly, Daniel Jones looked just like the Daniel Jones of old. He had 3 interceptions. He lost 2 fumbles. Jonathan Taylor was held in check, 14 carries for 45 yards. The former Patriot, Kyle Duggar, now playing safety for Pittsburgh, at 4 tackles, and Mike Tomlin awarded him the game ball. Pittsburgh will take on the Chargers on national TV next Sunday night. That should be a pretty good football game. Denver and Houston, a battle between really good defenses, goes to the Denver Broncos in Houston, 18-15, as Will Lutz hit a 34-yard field goal to give Denver their 7th win of the year. Denver's won 6 in a row. C.J. Stroud was concussed in the first quarter, and Davis Mills came in. He went 17 of 30 for 137 yards. Houston couldn't get it done in the red zone. They were 0 for 3 in the red zone, and they couldn't get it done on third down. They went 3 for 17 on third downs. Patrick Surtain sat this game out with a pec injury for Denver, but they still held Houston to 15 total points. Denver hosts the Vegas Raiders Thursday in Denver. Broncos playing really, really well. 18-15 winners in Houston. Jacksonville beat the Raiders in overtime 30-29 as Devon Hamilton broke up the Raiders' 2-point conversion attempt in overtime. And that was the difference in the ballgame. 30-29, Jacksonville beats the Raiders. Raiders have lost 6 out of 7. Cam Little, by the way, set an NFL record in this game. The Jaguars kicker made a 68-yard field goal in the game. Huge kick there for Little, and Jacksonville gets a win on the road in Vegas. Saints and Rams. Now, the Rams are up next for the Niners, and, man, they look good in Week 9. Rams go to 6-2. Stafford throws 4 touchdown passes, 2 of them to Devontae Adams. Puka Nacua is back. He had 7 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. Kyron Williams ran for 114 yards and another touchdown. Rams had 438 total yards, and they allowed only 224. The Rams are looking like they potentially could be a juggernaut. The last 3 Rams opponents have combined for 20 points. Saints are now 1-8. It was Tyler Shuck's first NFL start. He did some good things, but he also turned the ball over. LA dominated the time of possession. They ran 75 plays in this game to only 51 for the Saints. And the Rams, who will take on the 49ers next Sunday at Levi's, will roll in with a 6-2 record. Maybe the game of the day in Week 9 was the Chiefs in Buffalo against the Bills, and the Bills get the win to go to 6-2, 28-21. Josh Allen was awesome today. 3 touchdowns. He went 23 of 26. That's 89% completion percentage for 273 yards. How about this one? Buffalo is 5-0 in their last 5 against Kansas City in the regular season, but Kansas City is 4-0 in the last 4 against Buffalo in the playoffs going back to 2020. Mahomes completed only 44% of his passes in this game. He threw for 250 yards and a pick, and he was running for his life. He was sacked 3 times. He was hit 15 times. And the Buffalo Bills, despite not having Ed Oliver on their defense, hit Mahomes 15 times and beat Kansas City 28-21. Of course, week 9 got rolling on Thursday when the Ravens beat the Dolphins 28-6 in Miami. Lamar Jackson's now back. He threw 4 touchdown passes. Baltimore's now won 2 straight. Derrick Henry, 19 carries for 119 yards. Miami fired GM Chris Greer, and they're likely to fire the head coach at the end of the season. But he's going to stick around for the time being. Dolphins fall to 2-7. Ravens improve to 3-5. Monday Night Football will wrap up Week 9. It's the Arizona Cardinals in Texas to take on the Cowboys. The Week 9 bye week teams were Cleveland, the Jets, Philly, and Tampa. And then, of course, you know the Niners story. I mean, the 49ers beat the Giants 34-24. Mac Jones continues to play really, really well. 19 of 24 for Jones for 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 135.2 rating, sacked twice all day. Christian McCaffrey, 28 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. Brian Robinson had his best game as a Niner, 5 carries for 53 yards and a touchdown. That's 10-6 a carry for Brian Robinson. Jawan Jennings caught 4 balls for 41 yards and a touchdown. McCaffrey also had a receiving touchdown among his 5 catches for 67 yards. Jones had 1 negative play. It was a fumble at the end of the first half, but it didn't even cost the Niners. Tatum Bethune, 16 tackles for Bethune, 8 solo. Upton Stout was really good in this game. He had 6 tackles, 4 solo. He had a TFL. Niners only had 2 sacks and 3 hits on the quarterback, but it was good enough to get the win over the New York Giants. Giants run D is just not very good. The Giants, came out in that first drive and did whatever they wanted. Jackson Dart moved it down the field. Dart, though, doesn't really see the field that well, and he was 24 of 33 for 191. He did throw for 2 touchdowns, sacked a couple times. He ran 8 times. In fact, he was the Giants' leading rusher. 8 carries for 56 yards, 7 yards a pop. Niners kept Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy pretty much in check. Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson were their leading receivers. And the Niners offensive line only gave up 2 sacks and only 3 hits on the quarterback. So overall, considering that, you got Abdul Carter and you got Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns. I mean, you got some really, really excellent defensive linemen on this front. For the Niners to only give up 2 sacks and 3 hits on the quarterback all day is really, really good. So 49ers roll to 6-3, 4-2 on the road as the Giants fall to 2-7, 2-2 at home. And now next up, 49ers come back to Levi's, where Sunday they'll take on the Rams. And, of course, we should tell you 49er football all season long is presented on the Krug Show by Sleeper, the fastest-growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chats, season-long leagues, and, of course, Sleeper Picks for daily fantasy, where you choose between 2 to 8 players pregame or live and pick more or less on their stat projections. And if you're new to it, use promo code Larry. You'll get a 100% deposit match up to $100 on your first deposit. And now Sleeper has a new offer. They're giving out $20 for free to first-time users. No deposit required. And on top of all of that, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. The link is right there in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. Thanks to Sleeper. Remember, use that code Larry for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Links right in the description. Terms apply. Help support the show and gets you rolling on the #1 sports app in the country. Well, I'll tell you one thing that's really interesting. One observation to me that's interesting coming out of Week 9 is that look at the NFC and how jumbled it is at the very top. You have 8 or 9 teams that have 5 wins or 6 wins. Eagles have 6 wins. Packers have 5. Detroit has 5. The Bears have 5. Tampa has 6. Carolina has 5. I think they're probably the biggest surprise at 5-4. And then you got Seattle has 6. The Rams have 6, and the Niners have 6. So you got 9 teams in the NFC that have 5 or 6 wins. Only 7 teams are going to make the playoffs. The 4 division winners, and then 3 additional wild cards. So, and the NFC West being what it is, man, these games head to head are going to matter so much starting next week with the Rams. Niners have already beaten all 3 of the other contenders in the NFC West. But you look at this race. I mean, Philly, let's say, is going to win the NFC East, and we'll give Tampa the NFC South. Okay, so then they're in. One between Green Bay, Detroit, most likely win the NFC North. And then you've got Niners, Seahawks, and Rams, all potentially battling for the NFC West. And whoever's the losers there in the division races are all in the mix for 3 wildcard spots. So we shall see. It's very competitive. You get 9 teams right now that with either 5 or 6 wins competing for 7 spots, 4 division winners, 3 wildcards. And the NFC is wide open. And the trade deadline's coming up on Tuesday, the 4th. And you got to think that, that's going to have a huge impact in such a jumbled NFC where, Philly looks flawed. Washington doesn't even look like a playoff team. Green Bay lost this weekend. Detroit lost this weekend. The Bears are hardly world beaters. Carolina is a playoff in the playoff picture right now. I mean, you look at these teams and you think, whoa, it's wide open. And whoever wins at the trade deadline potentially could get the upper hand on winning, that final playoff spot or 2 in the NFC. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Sleeper, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show, and thanks to you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.